Hi everyone, welcome back to the Curator's Shelf and good to see you all here. This week's topic, yes, is about vision and or visions, I should say plural, about how I go about setting or working on this area, some tips for those of you who are interested, and also how this can kind of like tap into the theme for this month, and especially with the winter solstice coming up next week. So yeah, so stay tuned. So good to have you all back. And yeah, I've just kind of like had a couple of weeks where it's been intensely busy and I took a bit of a break from the curated shelf. And coming back this week, one of the things I realized was that it being today, already the 12th of December, we have basically a few weeks left before the end of the year. And what I usually find at this time of year is that with 2021 approaching, it can almost feel like a squeeze. And I had that in my workplace where it was kind of like it's been very much kind of like people trying to wrap up everything before the Christmas break. And what I kind of like started to see was, this pattern that I have where I am thinking about the year ahead, but really I don't do anything until about 3 days before the new year. And it's like I'm in the post Christmas slump. And then it's like, oh yeah, I've got to think about what I'm going to do next year and maybe my vision and goals and dreams. And if any of you relate to that, maybe this makes sense. But basically, then I kind of like squeeze that kind of like thinking process into 2 or 3 days. And I'm always frustrated. I find myself scouring websites looking for ideas or vlogs and so forth for ideas, and then buying some kind of a 2021 or basically a calendar journal or a vision notebook or something where I will then quickly jot down something. And it's just I kind of like have seen this pattern myself where it's more about the fun stationery than the actual planning. So this year I kind of like decided to do a bit of a pause and ask myself like, wait, like we spend all of our time, or I know I spend a lot of my time either working or I am, I do my crafts and my hobbies and so forth, and my own personal interests. You can see that with tarot and the oracle decks, or I'm a keen runner. I spend a lot of time on activities, but interestingly, I don't think I put enough energy into thinking about how I want to go ahead with something and giving that kind of like idea time to like really set into reality or set into a plan or a vision or a real concrete kind of like, I don't want to use the word concrete, it's solid, but a real kind of like manifestation in that sense. And recently I was talking to a friend, and it occurred to me that instead of it all being piled up right to the end of the month, and then it's kind of like, okay, now I'm going to look at this, I have really spent this month already, the last few days, and I'll be doing that for the weeks ahead, thinking a little bit further about how my 2021 I'd like it to look, or the things that I'd like to aspire to focus on. Let me put it this way. So this video comes with two major caveats. One is that what I'm about to say is not about having kind of like a board and then if it's not materialized, it didn't work. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about inspiration. I'm talking about intuition, instinct, all those I words. I'm talking about tapping into us something that maybe it's not realized within 12 months, but it sets in motion a course. So that's one thing. And two, I'm talking about, for me anyway, it's really helpful to have kind of like more of an overview of different areas rather than it all being focused towards one major goal. So for example, if my major goal was to buy a car next year, then everything gets set towards that. And I don't think, for me anyway, that's very healthy. I can also have other major goals like I want to look like this, or I want to spend money towards a new wardrobe or whatever. I want to redecorate the house or whatever. And then what ends up happening is that we can have this focus that that's it, that's our major goal. So instead, what I'm going to talk about here is how can that could be a little bit more balanced and a little bit more rewarding in the sense that it's not coming with pressure. So the first and foremost, the first thing that I do when I'm doing 2021 kind of like thinking process is I start to just jot down ideas. So it might be a better looking at my finances, or it could be redoing the space in my house because it's just really right now not working for me, the working from home. So it could be that, or it could be kind of like looking at health and fitness and nutrition, and perhaps I want to make some tweaks to the foods that I'm eating because I'm not sleeping well or something. So I'll just make notes on those lines. I won't judge what I'm writing. So the first thing is to just do note taking. And it doesn't have to be all done in one go. It could be just walking around with your notebook, put it in your bag, or just have it in the house, easy to access. And when a thought comes, or you're seeing something, or you're watching a vlog, or you're reading a book, and it's like, oh, I'd love to do that, just jot it down and have no judgment. So it can even be something like reading a novel and the character is on holiday in southern Italy, and all of a sudden that's like, oh, I'd love to do that. Then just jot it down, and that's fine. So that's tip number one. Tip number two for me is to build enough time into this process. So I've just alluded to that, but do give yourself a good 1, 2, 3 weeks more if you have that time. But just give yourself enough time to not pressure it all into, right, I've got 2 days to do vision work and then I've got to create something. It's like, no. So give yourself that breathing space, and also allow yourself, or I do that for me, I allow myself to explore different mediums. So not all of the vision ideas and thoughts will come from movies or TV. It could also be that I recently had it that I was looking through my wardrobe for some outfit planning, and I discovered some items that I haven't worn. And one of the visions or the ideas that I came up with, a goal was next year to make more outfits using items that I haven't worn recently. So, don't let it always be that it's around some kind of a really large plan. It can be also around smaller day-to-day matters where you might think, yes, I'd like to really address this. So that's tip number, I think that's number 3 already now that we're going into. Just allow yourself to have different mediums where the messages come across. And tip number 4 for me is also looking at where I am feeling most challenged. For example, is it because due to the situation that we're having with quarantines and the pressure that some of us might be feeling working from home or just living in a constrained way? What are the pressures that I'm feeling, and what can I do to help alleviate those pressures? So is it more hobbies? Is it more time away from my screen? Is it more time where I can find a way to explore beyond my area in a safe manner? Because I know that for some of us traveling is going to be difficult still. But where am I feeling that pressure? And to note down that as well, because part of my vision for the coming year is to also give myself that breathing space. And finally, one of the ideas that I have, and I think this is already tip number 5, is creating vision buckets. And that's the way I'm going to put it. So your buckets could be, or my buckets could be, one could be around home. The other one could be around food and nutrition and fitness. A bucket could be spirituality. Another bucket could be exploring new hobbies or being out in my community a bit more, or charity work. But the point is to have these vision buckets, and then to just allow those to brew and and allow the ideas to come forward again. So and not to have, for me, it's good not to have too many buckets, otherwise I'll get confused. So I normally have 5 buckets or so, something like that, 4 or 5 or 6 buckets. But that allows me to then really have some kind of like concrete ideas in those areas, and for those to be written that through. So yeah, this is kind of like what I've been doing recently around 2021 planning and just going forward. So that's a whole construct, and I don't know if that's helpful for anyone, but I just thought I'd share that for this video. It's it's a time of year where all of us can feel really, really kind of like pressured or just trying to wrap things up. So it's okay to just use this time to just think, wait, I can actually decompress and not put myself under so much pressure. Finally, just before I forget, is that part of the theme for this channel has been tarot and oracle decks. So I just thought it'd be good just to weave through how can I use my decks if you're somebody that does work with tarot and oracle decks for 2021 planning or for visions and so forth. And so here I've got some decks that I just want to show as examples, but feel free to use whatever you've got on your shelf, because I think it's really good to not go out and buy necessarily, but just use whatever you have. So I've picked 3 decks, which are all very different for me. And I think that's what I'm going to allude to. One is a tarot deck that I don't use very often, but it's called the Muse Tarot. It's by Hay House Publishing, and the author is Chris Anne. And it is a beautiful deck. I won't show too much of it because, this isn't the focus for this video, but I just thought I'd mention it. The reason why I just wanted to quickly show this deck to you was that it's got these beautiful images. They're very modern. It's a very modern deck, but it has a lot of color. And this deck for me is really good to get me out of my usual self and my usual thinking. I'm somebody that works a lot with earthy decks. So this deck is really good because it really pulls me out of my comfort zone. And sometimes for vision planning, I need that. I need a little bit something different and quirky. And something that you could do is just pull 1 or 2 cards, not necessarily for 2021, but 1 or 2 cards to aid you in the planning for 2021, which is a little bit different. So these are cards that you can use as kind of like helping you to think through, what is it that I need to have in mind as I plan. So for example, if you pull the card 4 of Inspiration, which as I recall in this deck is the 4 of Wands, which is to do with kind of like coming together and celebration and so forth. Perhaps this is part of my 2021 theme planning. So not necessarily about the year, but more about my planning, that perhaps I need to confer with other people when I do 2021 vision board, or maybe I need to think about group settings. Or perhaps, as you're going through the deck and you pull other cards, the card that you might pull is, for example, the Knight of Emotions, which is to do with cups and to do with water energy and to do with love, and that side of us to do with emotions. And perhaps, 2021, as I do my planning, the theme could be for me to also think more in terms of experiences around love and emotions and connection with others. And that would be kind of like part of what I need to do as I do my planning. So that's one tip. The one set of cards, sorry. The other set of cards that I just want to quickly show is a deck such as the Queen of Moon Oracle. Now this is to do with more with the phases of the moon, but I love this deck because it really does resonate with different phases and kind of like challenges. So for example, we have keywords such as surrender here, or purity, or to do with balance. And so just to pull a card or 2 from this deck, or just 1 card actually I think would be enough, which is going to help me as I do my planning again. And then finally, a deck that could help me in this is something like this one, which is Botanical Inspirations. And this is a beautiful deck by Lynn Arrojo. I can't remember pronounce the name. But it really has these beautiful images. And I believe the painter and the artist is Flemish, actually. But this has some beautiful kind of like images around these flowers, these botanical inspirations. And what it has at the bottom, which I really love, is a gratitude. So for example, here with the garden heliotrope, that's the name of this plant. And it says, devotion and dreams fulfilled. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And just having a gratitude card next to me while I do my 2021 planning, I think is just so wonderful. And that's just something I've pulled randomly, so you can already see that how that could just really work. Or another card here, you can even pick the card, it doesn't have to be a random pick. But here it says determination and creative achievement, and that goes with the Amaryllis. So it says here at the bottom, you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. And that's by Maya Angelou, the quote. So I think these are just stunning cards, and it would just be wonderful to have one of these next to me as I do my 2021 planning. So if that's of help to anyone, I think that's great. Just kind of like, wherever you are in the world, whether you're going towards the summer solstice because you're in the southern hemisphere, or the winter solstice, the 21st, 22nd of December, that period of time is just so potent with some beautiful energy, especially this year. And so, I just wish everybody a wonderful period leading up to the solstice. I absolutely love this time of year. And I hope to see you again all next week. Thank you.